Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, this is your favorite breakfast show, Good Morning Namibia. Now, a driver's license is an official document that permits an individual to be able to drive one or more types of vehicles. However, a syndicate of fake driver's licenses is a concerning issue where people purchase these licenses. Joining us to tell us more about this issue is Chief Inspector Itetila Shapaka of the Khomas Regional Police. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning to you, Denver. Good morning, Namibia. Many thanks for having me.
Before we get into the burning issue relating to fake driver's licenses, please give us an update of the crime scene over the past weekend.
Yes, indeed. This is the one weekend that we perhaps saw that the police officers had robust and intensified operations on the ground. That was obviously informed by the past weekend, the Easter weekend, where we've had a lot of, lives lost, especially given the fact that perhaps the issue of alcohol was out of hand. Shabins were still operating after hours and all these types of things. But what we have done now is what we did this past weekend. We sort of intensified our crime prevention approaches. We had a lot of officers on the ground. We have had a lot of officers at the roadblocks. And a lot of mini roadblocks were set up. And in terms of reaction time, we saw that we had a lot of officers also reacting to the calls of the public. There were a lot of domestic violence-related issues. We had a lot of people who had to be removed because they did not understand themselves with their partners and stuff. And that in itself is preventative in its approach. And we did not really lose a lot of lives, as if one do a comparative analysis with the previous weekend. Perhaps they are yet to be reported, but we were a little bit proactive in our approaches. We ensured visibility. Shabins were closed on time. A few people were locked up for curfew violations. And we just wanted to be out there to take policing closer to the people to ensure that, most of these small misdemeanors are actually avoided. So the weekend that was, we'll still compile a proper crime analysis and the report will be provided through the public relations of the whole country. But here in Khomas region, that is what was happening, and we tried to be more proactive.
Chief, thank you very much for that very comprehensive overview of the weekend that was. Moving over to the focus area of this morning, can you talk to us about the scope, gravity, as well as magnitude of the issue relating to fake driver's licenses?
Well, indeed. Look, if you look at the provisions of the Road Traffic and Transport Act and regulations made thereunder, it sort of gives powers to the Namibia Traffic Information Center to sort of test the fitness of drivers. That means that anybody that is to possess either a learner's license or driver's license has to go through some sort of criteria that is predetermined to ensure that they are fit to operate motor vehicles. Now, the current status quo is that we have had a few, it takes two faults. We have had a few people that are either selling illegit driver's licenses, or they are either having syndicates to get these licenses without following the predetermined procedure. Now, what we are saying is that these drivers are actually a danger to either themselves or the road users. So that means they are not fit to carry or possess these licenses, either are they fit to drive on the public roads. Now they are a danger, they are a hazard, and what we are saying is that they do not really know what is expected of them when it comes to perhaps emergencies and whatsoever the case might be. And they are causing accidents. They are risk to other people. They are risk in terms of public safety. And what we are trying to do is to make sure that unauthenticated drivers are actually removed from the roads.
Chief, one of the fundamentals of law is that he who alleges must prove. And we spoke quite comprehensively about the concept of evidence during our engagement on Friday morning. How then does one discern an authentic license from a fake one?
Well, what we have seen is that at some point in time, when you look at the serial number of unauthentic license, you see that the serial number starts with a 03, while the authentic one is a 50. So that already tells you that this is a fake license. The other thing is that these illegitimate driver's licenses, especially the cards, you can actually tell just by looking at it that it does not resemble, specimen of a real driver's license card. And that tells you already that this is not authentic. And when you are formulating charges against this person, remember we spoke about the admission of guilt and non-admission of guilt. This is not the time that you give a traffic fine. This is a straight arrest. This person needs to be presented before court. And this is a card that you take in as evidence, as you rightly put it, that we need to prove. Now, these are some of the basics that one look at when you have to go and prove. From the serial number, how it appears, and that it is also not in the system. When you take the native system, this license will not appear anyway because it is illegitimate. It's not registered anyway. So that is one of the evidence that we have to look at.
In our introduction, we shared that this might be the work of a syndicate. So who would you ordinarily arrest other than the one who's in possession of such a fake driver's license?
When you deal with syndicates, the approach is to get the mastermind, the brainchild behind the whole, syndicate, not necessarily to take the distributors or whoever the case might be. So what we have tried to do, you see that you get 10 or 15 people arrested, but we want to get where they are buying these licenses. And then we get the business owner. We get the photocopy machines, we get the printers, we get the machinery that they use to prepare these licenses as evidence that need to be presented before court. Now, what we have seen is that there was a syndicate sometime in Rundu. There was another one here in Khomas region, another one in Okakarara. But what you've seen is that it is the managers that we are targeting, because it doesn't help that you arrest one or two people that bought these licenses, yet the owner of the business is still operating. That means he's still producing more licenses. That means that there's still more people that are being a danger to other road users out there who are not competent, to drive or operate motor vehicles. And what we want is to make sure that the whole system is actually uprooted. The whole, from the mastermind, is actually brought to book. And that is what we've tried to do. But every now and then they come up with new syndicators. As we speak, there is another one of, you've seen the ongoing operation that was at the roadblocks. We call it Transport Safe. We were specifically targeting unlicensed drivers or drivers with fake licenses, as well as vehicles that are not registered and licensed, because they are either having these forged documents or documents that are not anywhere in the native systems. And these are the people that we are trying to remove from the roads because they pose a great threat to other road users.
Thank you, Chief. How often is it an inside job?
What happens is you get people that are applying for either learner's licenses or driver's licenses, and then they fail at the testing centers. So when they come out, they are so disappointed, they are desperate, and then somebody approaches them, giving them these appealing offers, how to get a license, and it's so easy. And then it is really difficult to, turn down. So what they do then is they have somebody on the inside, and this person is the one who is now accessing the systems. They are the ones that are, making sure that the license cards are printed. And like I already said, this takes two folds. It is the licenses that are actually not with a native system, and then the ones that are produced from within by people that lives or that works within the systems. So these are the ones that are really of concern. We have arrested a lot of people already. We have looked at issues of anti-corruption and abuse of positions and all these kind of things. But we are also looking at illegitimate driver's licenses. So when you get somebody that is on the inside operating with people outside, it gets really difficult to infiltrate. But when we do, we remove everybody that is concerned in that specific, commission of an offense.
Thank you very much, Chief. Apart from the inability to pass these tests, speaking to competence and also fitness, and it might be obvious to some, but we don't want to be presumptuous. What are the motives behind a syndicate of this nature?
The motives behind this syndicate is people are trying to commercialize the little, methods or sort of modus operandi that they have as far as their job descriptions are concerned. Somebody finds himself in a position of power, sort of authority, and then they thought of making more money using the very systems that they are supposed to protect. And what happens then is that this individual will employ other people on the outside just to be identifying these disparate individuals. Perhaps you're applying for a job And then you need a license.
Thank
You know, one of the job descriptions is to have a license. And then you keeps on failing. So what happens is then anybody that comes, you know, with desperate, you say desperate calls, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And they sell this for 2,000 to 5,000 Namibian dollars.
Thank you, Chief.
So when they do that, then they commercialize it, number one, or they are so desperate to have it for whatever the reason might be.
Chief, we've run out of time, unfortunately. Your very brief concluding remarks, please.
Yes, indeed. We want to urge the general public to report any sort of syndicates that they have picked up, especially we are trying to do it from the police's side, but it will not be enough if we do not involve the general public. What we want is to be provided with information that will lead us to the successful conviction and arrest of these suspects that are actually making themselves guilty of selling licenses or producing fake licenses, so that we ensure that they are brought to book. Together we can ensure that actually the accidents on the roads are actually kept.
Tapandola Unene.
It's a pleasure. Eh? Many thanks.
There you have it, our usual suspect, Chief Inspector Itetila Shapaka from the Khomas Regional Police, talking to us about the contentious issue of fake licenses. We're back after the brief.